types of painting styles. Number 1. Realism.
Realism is an art style in painting that aims to present a reflection of the real world to the viewer. The painter tries to depict the subject as it appears in real life. Realism art is without following the rules of formal art theory. Also, the artist spends a lot of time and effort creating an accurate image of shapes and objects in the environment, perspective, creating the illusion of depth, good composition, light and dark, and color. Realism has been the dominant style of painting since the Renaissance. The artist uses perspective to create depth in space and adjusts composition and lighting to make the subject appear real. Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa is a classic example of this style.
Number 2. Surrealism.
Surrealism is a modern art style that combines various abstract concepts to create an amazing effect. Surrealism first became a movement in the 20th century. Well-known images are painted realistically, then reconstructed in an ambiguous, contradictory, or shocking frame, removed from their usual setting and context. Surrealist paintings are often illogical, expressing the artist's dreams and imagination with visions that emphasize the unconscious rather than logic. Artists create strange creatures from ordinary subjects and often paint uncomfortable and irrational situations with photographic precision. Surrealist art involves disorder, unexpected juxtapositions, and an element of surprise.
Number 3. Painterly painting style.
This style appeared when the Industrial Revolution swept Europe in the first half of the 19th century. In the past, painters went to great lengths to remove brush strokes or texture from their paintings. But in this style, the artist does not try to create the effect of his brush, which is applied freely and quickly, to hide. In fact, in this style of painting, subjects were presented realistically. However, painters make no effort to hide their technical work. Also, the color should not be applied thickly. Thin layers of color show themselves as beautifully as possible using this artistic style. The main emphasis of this style in painting is the brushstrokes and the pigments themselves. Artists working in this style do not try to hide what was used to create the painting by smoothing out the texture or traces left in the paint by a brush or other tools such as a spatula. Henri Matisse's paintings are excellent examples of this style.
Number 4. Impressionism.
Impressionism is a style of painting that is mostly related to the 19th century. Impressionism is a style of painting that has a rough and unfinished look and is characterized by small and thin brush strokes. The subject is usually natural subjects. Impressionist paintings are often painted outdoors to capture the natural sunlight and color of the subjects. Black is rarely used because Impressionist artists prefer to mix and use dark colors and complementary colors. Impressionism is more of a representation of an artist's impression that does not try to be exact in detail, but more like an expression of the feelings of the heart. This art style lies somewhere between Expressionism and Realism, focusing on accurate lighting but not emphasizing a realistic scene.
Number 5. Fauvism.
Fauvism is an art movement that was established at the beginning of the 20th century. The Fauvist style, characterized by its intense colors, textured brushwork, and unnatural imagery, was an important point in early 20th century art. In some ways, Fauvism artists emerged as an extension of the Impressionist artists who worked at the beginning of this century. The Fauvists are sometimes associated with the Impressionist style because of the way they painted directly from nature. However, unlike the Impressionists, the Fauvists were particularly concerned with capturing emotions in their subjects. Fauvists often painted portraits, landscapes, and colors, creating the natural world with greater impact on the surface of the canvas. Fauvism combines many art movements and borrows from everything from German Expressionism to Neo-Impressionism. Typical features of Fauvism are unique in their ability to appear timeless and innovative. Today, artists continue to use bold colors and bold brushwork to create vibrant works of art. Whether through the use of brushstrokes, saturated colors or a fresh look at the landscape, the concerns of Fauvism can be recognized time and time again in the contemporary art world.
Number 6. Expressionism.
Expressionism is a style of art that does not deal with realism. In this style, images and scenes are often distorted or painted with otherworldly and vivid colors that do not correspond to reality. Instead, the focus is on the artist's ideas or feelings expressed through the medium of art. The roots of the German Expressionism school lie in the works of Vincent van Gogh, Edvard Munch and James Ensor. Each of them developed a very special painting style between 1885 to 1900. These artists used the expressive possibilities of color and line to explore dramatic and emotional themes, to convey the feeling of fear, horror, or simply to celebrate nature. They broke away from the literal representation of nature to express more perspectives or states of mind.
Number 7. Cubism.
Cubism is an early 20th century art movement that revolutionized European painting and sculpture and inspired related art movements in music, literature, and architecture. Cubism was a highly influential art style created primarily by artists such as Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque in Paris between 1907 and 1914. In Cubist artwork, subjects are broken down and reassembled in an abstract form. Instead of depicting objects from a single perspective, the artist depicts the subject from multiple perspectives to show the subject in a larger context. In fact, the Cubism art style is an attempt to emphasize the two-dimensional nature of the canvas instead of creating depth.
Number 8. Abstract.
Abstract paintings avoid realism altogether. Whatever the subject of the painting, it may not be accurately represented in the artwork at all. Objects may be displayed with a color or shape instead, and interpretation is left to the viewer. The impact of an abstract painting cannot be understated, as many use shocking displays of color and form to further impress the senses. In fact, abstract art is a work of art that does not resemble anything from real life. It is an art style that seeks to achieve its goal or theme by using shapes, forms, colors and textures. The purpose of abstraction is to allow the viewer to interpret the meaning of the image for themselves. At its worst, abstract art looks like a haphazard painting, and at its best, it has an effect that moves you from the moment you see it.
Number 9. Suprematism.
An art movement in the early 20th century that focused on the basics of geometry, circle, square, rectangle, and painted in a limited range of colors. The term suprematism refers to abstract art based on the predominance of pure artistic feeling over the visual representation of objects. Suprematist painters were interested in pure abstraction and sought the zero degree of painting, a point beyond which one cannot go unless there is no art. To reach this point, simple motifs were used that best expressed the shape and smooth surface of the canvas.
Number 10. Romanticism.
Romanticism, also known as the Romantic movement or the Romantic era, was an artistic, literary, and intellectual movement that took place in Europe in the late 18th century and reached its peak in most regions between 1800 and 1850. Romanticism is characterized by an emphasis on sentimentality and individualism, occult literature, paganism, idealization of nature, suspicion of science and industrialization, as well as glorification of the past.